Okay, perfect. All right, so this is the agenda. Gonna try to keep it as simple as I can. First thing we'll be discussing is understanding humans. I believe that to understand the world around us, we must first understand ourselves. Second is the solar system, energy, cells, and light. Beginning of my awakening, I came across, or at the beginning of my journey, I came across this quote by Nikola Tesla, and it said that if you wish to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Third thing is collective consciousness. This is the idea that each and every one of our thoughts and the way we feel about things contribute into this whole bigger idea of the collective consciousness, and like basically every thought is related to each other as one. And lastly, Soa Hawaii and deep sea mining. And this is kind of my call to action. It's kind of the movement that I created in like a tangible way. All right. So to understand human beings, we must first understand ourselves. I mean, to understand the world around us, we must first understand ourselves. And what I mean by this is that, according to the law of correspondence out of the Kabbalah, which is an ancient philosophy book, it's that everything around us is basically a reflection of what's inside of us. So, in simple terms, I look at the earth as our body. If we understand the way that we're treating our bodies as humans, then we can more understand the problems in the world, or the problems with climate change and whatnot. Basically, any problem outside of us. Here we are, and we're gonna take a look at the average Joe, or a typical American. These are just some statistics that pass by my mind as like what I would consider a typical American. It's like the age range, like 18 to 30, middle class American. This is kind of what Joe's life is looking like. Desk job, he works at XYZ paper store. His diet mostly consists of fast foods, which is, processed food and whatnot, because of his lack of time to make home cooked foods or whatnot. So what is Joe doing? I broke this down into three sections of information to show you, like, kind of depict his lifestyle more. And basically I wanted to tap into these sections a little bit. So like environment, this is the surrounding conditions, that somebody is surrounded by. And the environment is super critical to us, because without environment and us are one and the same thing. And if your environment is bad, then it's usually reflected in your actions and what you output into the world. Occupation, the way that you spend your time. Time is an asset, just like money. The only thing about time is that it cannot go backwards. Money can go up and down. You can always get money, lose money, but time is something that you only get a forward movement of. So it's super critical to understand the way that we're spending our time and consumption. So this is the input. This is what somebody is consuming, using up of a resource, right? And it's not just physical, like eating and drinking, even though that's important. It's also material and information. Whatever we consume will stay in us, and it'll be externalized at some point or another. Oh, well, would you look at that? It seems to me that there's something trying to get our attention. Huh. It looks like a little tree is waving to us. We should check it out. Let's talk about photosynthesis. All right, well, the tree wants us to talk about photosynthesis now, so I guess that's what we'll do. All right, here is a basic science concept that we've all learned in high school. photosynthesis. Let's break the word down. Photo, light, and synthesis to put together. This is one of the fundamental steps, forms of biology. I'm no scientist, I'm no researcher, but I was taught this in high school, and it's just to emphasize that this is information that is publicly known. Like, it's not magic. It seems like magic, actually, because if you look at photosynthesis, it's a plant that takes the energy out of the sun, which is miles, light years away from us, and then transmutes it into a tangible form of fuel. And then it produces offspring with it, which is completely amazing to me. I think we take a lot of that for granted sometimes, but photosynthesis, it's converting light energy into chemical energy. And plants have been around on this earth way before humans have. There was plants first. While we were still, single-celled organisms in the ocean, there were plants, and they were always, being alchemists. They were always transmuting energy and turning them into fuel. Well, why is this important? How does this relate to Joe? Well, let's take a deeper look into Joe's life. So his environment. Joe, he works, like I said, XYZ paper store. He doesn't really get much sunlight. He's sitting on a desk for 9 to 5, 8 hours, 9 to 5, and he's just really enclosed. Like, he's wearing shoes, closed-toed shoes. He's wearing a suit. He's very entrapped physically. His occupation, he does something that he doesn't want to do, basically, but he has to because it's for survival. He follows what the boss tells him to do. He has to raise his hand when he has to use the bathroom so he can pay his bills. And at the end of the day, he just feels bad for himself because work is more like a burden than something that should be fun and uplifting, at least in my opinion. He's consuming fast food, alcohol, nicotine. He drinks sometimes, smokes a cigarette, because all of these things are forms of instant gratification. Pornography, that's a huge problem for young adults or young men today. And also having limited beliefs and about himself and his potential, which is, I think that's the most detrimental of all. So he is consuming what he needs to achieve that next spur of dopamine, right? That next, it's like it's not like he's trying to be a bad person or anything. It's kind of his limbic brain, his survival brain. The limbic brain is responsible for anything survival. It tells your it's like a reptilian brain. It tells your body when it needs food, water, to reproduce and whatnot. So he is looking for this next instinct. And nowadays we have instant access to things. Like, we can get things, whatever we want, really fast. So this is instant gratification, but unfortunately this is very toxic. You see, if a plant was to be in an environment like Joe, for example, let's say you take a plant out of the dirt and put it in a pot, and then put it in a closet, and then only give it 1 hour of sunlight. You could imagine that, it would not look the same as the plant outside, right? And yeah, so this is kind of where I'm trying to put the pieces together for you guys. Now, over 70% of the planet is water. So Joe is similar to the plant because he is 50 to 70% water. And we talked a little bit about the environment and how the plant needs sun to survive and to produce fruit. Joe is the same way. He is also largely made up of water. He does need the sunlight. It's not as necessary to his survival as the plant is, but it's still absolutely necessary. If you look at the word planet, it would be very, very similar. It would be actually the same to the word plant if only the E was added to the picture. So, well, wait a minute. Planet Joe, plant, all made of water, photosynthesis. Huh. Does this mean that Joe, the plant, and the planet are somehow elaborately connected to one another? Well, my friend.
Go figure, huh?
Yes. And stars are supposed to shine. So I know this is a big jump. We went from Joe, an American or a person, to plants, to the whole solar system. Now, some of you guys might be like super overwhelmed, like, wow, Coda, holy crap, I'm not an astronomer. I know nothing about the universe. Relax. You might know a little bit more about the universe than you think. So I put this right here. Stars are supposed to shine because in my eyes, a human being like Joe is a star in a galaxy full of planets. Just like just like Joe would be a something really cool to a world full of plants, you know? I'd like to think human beings are a lot cooler than plants. Like plants are great, but human beings can do a lot more, and we also have the infinite potential to do virtually anything that we could possibly imagine, right? So that's why I kind of created this representation. If you notice, he's like a star, and it's like kind of to represent your your spiritual sense of being a human being or your soul. Now, we are a product of our environment. This is not magic. This is a well-known fact that we are of the earth, not separate from it. You know, this whole new concept of owning land and whatnot, owning houses, like even like selling water is kind of really crazy for me to think about because nobody owns this stuff. This was on the earth before we were even here. And for me, it doesn't make sense. It never really clicked to me why we do this until adulthood when I started to understand, capitalism and adult logic. But we're not separate from the earth. In fact, I think that if anything, we belong to the earth. And therefore, we should definitely respect it because without the earth, we could not survive. This is a little image of what DNA looks like. And if you could tell, it looks pretty similar to what the galaxy looks like in retrospect, right? We have these little balls, and they're all spinning around each other. I just put this picture here to show you like that really everything is connected. The smallest things, DNA, like the smallest thing to the largest thing. The human body is super, super phenomenal. We have enough DNA in our bodies to show, like, if you were to convert the amount of DNA in our bodies to, let's say, like gigabytes or terabytes, like it would be a number that I couldn't tell you because it's just that big. You feel me? Like we have so much DNA, and it's even proven that like the amount of DNA in our bodies dates back to the beginning of the whole universe. And that would make sense because we are the highest stage of evolution on this planet, right? So we have to have all the information that encodes us from the beginning of time. This is a more difficult concept to understand, but this is the tree of life. And it's the fundamental shape that exists within all of creation and reality. We'll touch more about this in the next slide. But basically, it's kind of like if you were to get a piece of paper, right? And this piece of paper is two-dimensional. But if we look at it, it's and we be the creator for a second and draw circle. it's a two-dimensional shape, right? But as humans, we've discovered that you play around with the circle a little bit and you give it dimension, or I should have made a square, but I'll make a square because I cannot draw a three-dimensional circle is what I was trying to do.
Not that easy.
Not that easy. Certainly not with a pen. Okay, so now we have a three-dimensional square, which is a cube now, right?
Right.
So this is an example of how we can kind of tap into that dimension quality of life, and it gets even more crazy because basically, if this is the second dimension into third dimension, we do this by literally like taking a thought out of our brains and transmuting it onto paper to manifest into physical reality. We then what life does basically is it takes this object and it multiplies itself. So going back to the circle thing, because this is the tree of life. So it takes this circle or this cube now, or I mean not cube, but sphere, and it will generate a new one like this. And then this one will duplicate itself and generate a new one like that. And then eventually you have like these 6 parts. And I only can express this as a two-dimensional thing, but it's not. And that's how we tap into the different dimensions of life. But basically, true life is evident in every single aspect of existence, from the smallest thing to the whole universe to more.
Fibonacci.
What was that?
It's a Fibonacci.
Yes. Yeah, the Fibonacci spiral, right? And so we see this in math concepts. We see this in organisms like flowers, shells. We see this spiral pattern in the cosmos. It's in our DNA. Like, come on, Joe. This has to resonate at some level. Remember? Like, we know this information. The thing is, like, I feel like we just have been we've taken the alphabet, which is a simple way to remember things, right? The alphabet, and we scrambled it. We mixed it all up. And now when we hear about this type of things, it seems so unfamiliar to us. And it almost seems like magic or something that cannot be real. But I'm just like putting these things out piece by piece to try to explain this interconnectedness that we all have. Also, this little diagram right here is I think that the world is actually revolving around the sun, because so the geometric model, which was the first idea, was that the Earth was the center of the universe and everything revolved around that. Obviously, we're not that great. The sun is the one that goes through, and all the planets revolve around it. But that was represented in the heliocentric model as like again, that two-dimensional idea. But because time exists, right? Time is the getting from point A to point B by traveling through space. That is time. It would be way more logical, and it makes way more sense in my eyes, that the sun is actually propelling through space while these planets are circulating around it. So it takes that heliocentric model, but it gives that aspect of time. And this is cool because, like, when we talk about photosynthesis, right? Photo means photo is light, and synthesis to put together. You think of a photo like an actual picture, right? And then you think about like a movie. Well, what is a movie? It's basically, or a video, it's basically a bunch of photos or a bunch of images put together, synthesized, and it's through a course of time, which creates that movement or that video effect. And that's kind of how we experience life too, right? So our eyes, our eyeballs have photoreceptors in it, light receptors, and it processes the same way. It processes one image at a time or one moment at a time. And this meeting's gonna end in 10 minutes, so I need to hurry up. Anyways. Cool. So Joe listened to my presentation and he was like, whoa, Coda, this is some serious information. I need to change my life up right now because the way I was living left me super depressed. It gave me no fulfillment. I wasn't doing anything good for my community. I was just being a consumer and consuming all the wrong things. And my light was dim. I had no purpose, no ambition. I had money, I had everything I needed, but what? I was just dull, you know? So what is Joe doing now? Well, Joe, he moved to the bamboo forest of Kauai. I just said that because this is where I took the picture. He's surrounded by nature. He gets enough sunlight. He has access to the ocean. He also takes care of his environment. Now that he understands the connection, he's going outside, watering his plants, you know, just doing little things to give back. And because he knows that he is connected to the everything, to the environment around him, right? His occupation, he's a free bird now. No, he's not just like wandering around like chanting kumbaya and whatnot. He has a job, but this job is what he's actually called to do. He went back once he quit his old job that wasn't fulfilling him. He started thinking about things that he liked to do in his childhood, and he found out that he was really good at, you know, doing sewing shirts for old ladies or something. And he started doing that, and the universe led him to a place where he could have his own sewing business. So he's able to serve, and not just serve himself, but serve others and support life. Consumption up. I meant to change that picture. Right. He's now consuming whole organic foods, nutrient rich, high alkaline foods. And he's also absorbing new information about the universe. As you can see, Joe is shining way brighter than he was prior. Cool. This is just a moment of gratitude. I'm super grateful, or full of greatness, to have your attention. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Let's explore the collective consciousness a little bit. So I talked a little bit about it. Collective consciousness is our collaborative idea, like basically your mind on a macro scale that contributes everybody's mind. Everybody, everything and everybody that has consciousness, we're all one mind. And this is very, very important in my eyes, because if we can get more people to understand this and understand that every thought that they think has an impact on somebody else around them and the environment around them, then we could shift the world into a much better place. And who doesn't want a much better place? There are some people who do not want a much better place, but that's okay, because, you know, polarity and stuff. We need the negative to have the positive, but it definitely can get a lot better. Anyways, we all start with the number 1, right? What comes before nothing? Nothing. No thing can come before nothing. But something did happen. Some people like to call this as the Big Bang, whatnot. I like to call this as the number 1, because that's the first number. So let's say 1. What do we have 1 of? To make it simple, we have 1 of Joe. We have 1 person. Simple enough, right? Let's say I'm Joe. We have 1 I. This is very important. We have 1 I. I am Joe, right? Okay. Wow. Now there's a picture of an eye here. Coda, this is kind of creepy. Well, hold on. I. 1 eye. What do we see with? We see with our eyes. It's like that for a reason. That was kind of weird. Huh, that didn't really make sense. But wait. We also have 1 Earth. Now, this is the only planet in the whole solar system that we know that can sustain life, and not just life, but the phenomenal experience of creation. You know, think about zebras, giraffes, elephants, like all these crazy animals that you couldn't even imagine these animals, yet they exist somehow. And I believe that they are expressions of our constantly expanding universe, you know? So, right. So what's a number that's even better than 1? Well, 2, right? Can't get more better than 2. Now you're probably like, oh, this kid is crazy. I knew it. There's 2 purple cats on my screen. What? We can make this more binary for those of you who like it binary. Anyways, we have 2. Now from 1, we have 2. But remember, we had 1 first. This 2 is within the 1. Polarity. Yin and yang. Super exposed term. If you don't understand it, it's basically the concept that you need the light to balance out the darkness. And there's a bit of darkness inside every light thing and a bit of light inside every dark thing. It plays together. it needs to happen, you know, it has to happen. And it you can't get away from it, right? So we have 1 and 2, right? Now, this concept is expressed in everything through gender. We have poles, male and female, and they're opposite, but they are still the same thing, right? They're both human beings. And if you even go deeper into it, there's a feminine and a masculine side of a male, and there's a feminine and masculine side of a female. It's universal.
Mhm.
And also this female and these male aspects and traits exist in everything, and that's also one of those laws of the universe that I've read in the Kabbalion, which is the law of gender. So now basically we have 2 eyes. Yeah, there's 2 eyes now, and this goes, hopefully this makes more sense, but not 1 eye but 2 eyes, and we see out of our eyes. So this was just kind of like to show you that representation of that positive and negative that we have inside of all of us, and also that male and female aspect that we have inside of all of us. Thank you for being still. Almost there. Hopefully I don't run out of time, but if I do, I'll restart the meeting. Let's have a water break.
Shoot.
No, that's a lot of information, guys.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna take you through a little like mind movie. Now, imagine the Earth at, I don't know when the Earth was created or if we have a label for that, but the Earth at creation BC, and there's just ocean. There's land too, and there's plants, but there's no life yet. There's no life besides plants. There's just ocean. But then life happens. The simplest form of life. And that's you and I. It's the eyes again. But we only have 1 cell, because remember, before nothing, there's nothing. So to start, you have to have 1. So we only have 1 cell, but we are aware that we have 1 cell. We're just surrounded by each other and ocean, water, and we're mostly made up of water. Hopefully, you're getting some I just lost my words. It's making sense. But yeah, so like we started as single cell organisms, and we were just surrounded by each other, and we were so like close to source because that's all we were, and that's all that there was. Let me tell you, like it'd be a lie to say nothing has changed, because everything has changed, but nothing has disappeared. We are still the same awareness that we were when we were single-celled organisms, and everything around us is still water. Not the ocean water that I'm trying to portray, but everything around us is basically the same thing. There's no separation is what I'm trying to get at. You know, you take a bucket of water out of the ocean and you drive it all the way to Phoenix, Arizona, and pour it out, or ask somebody where you got that water from. And the answer is still ocean water. No matter how far you take it from the source, it will always be ocean water, which gets us into deep sea mining. Now, I don't know if you heard of it, but this is the biggest threat to the ocean today. And it's gonna impact Hawaii if we don't do something about it soon. So this is how I'm introducing or incorporating this into my whole spiel about the universe. But basically, there's polymetallic nodules, basically metal clumps, the bottom of the ocean floor, right? And these modules are made out of cobalt, lithium, and magnesium. These are ingredients that they can put into car batteries or electric car batteries. And that's why the metals company and other big corporations want to dig them up so that we can make more money off of it, right? So they're taking the whole environmental thing and they're just like industrializing it, or they're just looking at it in a non-productive way that only benefit few and totally just disrespects our Earth. The International Seabed Authority, which is supposed to protect these deep sea modules, are leaning towards the side of